Hello, I'm Rosemary Hannah. Welcome to the Bahamas Then and Now, a series that deals with our history, heritage, arts, and culture. And on this episode, we will be talking about culture and in particular, one of our great Bahamian icons. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Our guest today is Lee Callender. Welcome.
Hello, Rosemary Hannah. Good to be here. How are you?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Now, Lee, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're an accomplished musician, you're a vocal coach, and you do lots of other things. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, the thing that I do most these days is teaching as opposed to performing. I teach a lot of singers, an army of singers actually, and pianists. One of my goals is to develop this generation into something really, really wonderful and excellent.
Tell us about your childhood growing up and the one person who really was a great influence in your life.
Well, I am multinational in a sense. Only one passport, Bahamian passport, and my father is Barbadian, and I grew up in Barbados when I was a little boy, and I also was born in the Bahamas. My first piano teacher was the iconic Timothy Gibson, the late Timothy Gibson, my grandfather, and the composer of the Bahamian national anthem. You know, he had 7 grandchildren. I was the last of the grandchildren and the only survivor of his love of music. So as you know, as we came out of the womb, I think he was just playing like everybody has got to play the piano. And so we went through it. I remember as a little kid saying, "Granddaddy, I want to go outside and play marbles. I do not want to sit at this piano." He was not hearing it. He insisted that I play the piano. And then anyway, we eventually moved to Barbados, where I had a French-Canadian piano teacher called Diane Provençal. And I spent 7 or 8 years with her doing my grade 1 to grade 8. And that was an interesting experience to me. You know, I was a precocious child, and I was very determined to fulfill my love of music in the way that I wanted to. So my teacher was useful to me, but I pretty much guided the ship. For example, we did grade 1 piano. Then I said, okay, that's great. We got to do grade 3 now, not grade 2. And then we did grade 5. I said, we only doing grade 5 because you have to do grade 5 in order to get to the other grades. So we did grade 5, then we did grade 6, and then we skipped grade 7 and went to grade 8. So I pretty much did the 8 grades in 5 years. And the turning point for me in that was when I did my grade 6. And the examiner started to write, and he was writing and writing. I said, okay, I am a dead man, because he could not possibly be writing anything good. When I got the exam results, which I got a distinction on, the guy was saying beautiful phrasing, elegant playing, highly expressive, deep tone. I said, okay, this is a revelation to me. I knew that I had some talent, but this was so exciting to me, and my ego was fully encouraged to pursue music as not so much as a hobby anymore, but to become semi-professional. Now, I still, 50-something years later, play the piano because of love. I mean, I make a living from it, but I always play the piano primarily because I play out of love. And so, between my grandfather's being an inspiration, between that exam at grade 6, I am here today still playing the piano. I'm like a little child with it. It's still fresh every day for me. New every morning.
That's wonderful. Aside from your musical training, where did you go to school?
I went to school, when I was a little boy, I went to Woodcock Primary. And my grandmother, Rosina Gibson, was my teacher there. And she used to have to bring me up to the front sometimes because I was a little chatty, you know.
Always chatty.
I know, always chatty. And so she would bring me up there by her side, not to be teacher's pet, but to keep an eye on me, to make sure that I was not getting into any unnecessary problems. And then I went to Barbados. I went to Harrison College, which is one of the greatest schools in the Caribbean. And I didn't do very well at Harrison College. They bored me to tears, you know, because the educational system around the world, pretty much, at least in the Caribbean, is so very standard, and it didn't really accommodate young artists like myself. You know, a perfect environment for me educationally would have been languages, perhaps, musical training, professional training in terms of how to behave in public, how to speak properly, communication skills, and business in order to become a great musician eventually. But alas, these things I had to discover myself later on in life. So Harrison College was great for me because I got to play in the school orchestra, and I met this amazing woman called Janice Millington, who eventually became my piano teacher. Now there's an interesting story with Janice. She taught me music in school, while I was still going to my French-Canadian piano teacher, Diane Provençal. Now, I was dying for Janice to teach me. I said, how can I get out of this relationship with this teacher? So I was plotting. I said, when I do my grade 8, I'm out of here. Didn't know how to do it, but the teacher saw the fact that she couldn't teach me anything anymore. And she said, you need to go to Janice now.
Okay.
Now, here's what Janice did for me. Janice knew my playing, and she was quite aware of my personality and everything. And so at our first lesson, Janice says, today, I'm going to teach you how to play a note. Now, you must understand, I know, right? You have to understand that when I was growing up, I had such dexterity and mobility on the piano that my friends called me Flash, as in Flash Gordon, you know, the supernatural, the sci-fi character, right? And so I go to this woman who I love dearly, you know, and she said, I'm going to teach you how to play a note. I said, this woman is out of her mind. The thing that I said inside of my head, no 15-year-old should be singing about a human being that's an adult. And so we start this whole process about playing this note. I listen to the note. She said, what do you hear? I said, I hear a note. She said, try it on an octave higher. What do you hear? I said, nothing. Eventually, I learned that as you go higher, the notes get, they die away more quickly. And that makes a difference to listening and appreciating what every single note means. So from that lesson alone, I started this process of becoming a better musician on day one, of paying more attention to everything that I play. And it served me so well as a vocal coach and a piano coach.
So what have been the greatest highlights of your musical career?
Oh boy, in most recent times, the concert that Joanne and I did last year for Independence, that was an amazing cultural event. And I think it's one of the highlights, not of my career, but I think in Bahamian music history. Because nothing like it has ever been done, where you have a fusion of Bahamian music with classical music, and there you have Bahamian instruments, and you have a piano, bass, and drums with 5-string instruments, you know. So you have that European plus Bahamian fusion. And it was so amazing for me. Joanne worked very hard, I must tell you, because I did all the arrangements primarily, most of them, and then I had to score everything so that Henry Moss, the string arranger, could actually arrange for all the other instruments. So it was like slave labor for a month. The thing that came out of that for me, though, was a very iconic arrangement of the Bahamian National Anthem, which my grandfather wrote. And it was, I remember going into the studio at 12 o'clock midnight, and 7 hours later, I had come up with that arrangement of the national anthem. I worked feverishly, because you know you're on a timeline and deadline and that kind of thing. And I've been very proud of it. The other highlight of that concert is the string version for cello and violin of the national anthem, which is like anybody who hears it are quite amazed at how magnificent our Bahamian melody is that Timothy Gibson wrote, and then the combination of the two instruments. This mind-boggling, very sublime experience for me and for all who heard it.
You and Joanne are such a wonderful team together. Tell us more about your, teamwork with your wife.
Teamwork with a soprano. The higher they go, the more dramatic they are. Joanne is an amazing artist because a voice like that comes around every couple of centuries. And she has so much flexibility with the voice, so that to arrange for that particular instrument is quite amazing. And we've done some amazing concerts around the world, traveling to Europe many times together with Franz Hepburn and Cleveland Williams, Dr. Cleveland Williams, yes. And we have done an amazing, that's where our whole Bahamian fusion came, because when we first went to Europe, we were doing mostly classical music, and then we did one Bahamian piece. And somebody said, why don't you do more Bahamian music? So we fused from European music to Bahamian music, and out of that came some material for Joanne as a solo, because all that material was group material. And then the culmination of that was last year's concert, where we did 20 songs by 10 Bahamian composers.
Beautiful.
It was magnificent.
It was beautiful.
And so it was a time of great patriotism for us, and a time of really connecting with our roots and combining all that we know as artists, classically and otherwise, with that experience.
Talking about music, I mean, what aspects of it do you enjoy most?
That's interesting. I love to play the piano. I go to the piano sometimes, piano room, and I just improvise. I work at the beginnings, I work at the ends, and then I wing it in the middle and see what will happen, you see? And so, but I'm very comfortable doing that, because I improvise pretty much every day of my life for the last 50 or so years from childhood. And so I could go and do a concert tomorrow pretty much and just improvise the whole thing.
Beautiful.
It's fantastic.
You're very good at that.
I love it. It takes a little bit of courage and some nerves sometimes, but it's very
You get nervous?
I call myself an unwilling soloist. I have the horrors every time. I mean, nobody knows this, right? Because I look so confident when I do my thing, and it's nobody's business. But I mean, the throat is dry. I feel like I want to vomit sometimes.
Really?
I get tightness in my left side, and then my hands start to get wet, and then I feel discombobulated, and the whole body feels like it's going to, you know. It's quite a drama. And then while this is going on, I'm walking onto the stage like, you know, Mr. Macho, Mr. like Arnold Schwarzenegger of the piano, and then boom, we do this wonderful stuff. And then while I'm playing, I'm just like going through this whole computer thing, remembering notes, just trying to do things, trying to create in the spot. Say, this sounds good here. Let me do a little bit more there. Let's not go there, you know, because one time I was playing, and as I was about to bring my hands on the piano, I changed the introduction. It's like this. It's like a scene from The Matrix. Everything in slow motion, coming down, like boom. I said, okay, I'm not doing that one anymore. And so those types of things happen in public. It is crazy, but it's fun though, living on the edge.
But you could really fool the public. We thought, you know, we think you're so confident, you know.
But I'm confident, but I'm just scared. I'm just internally petrified, you know. And every time, you know, every time.
That's very interesting. What is your different definition of Bahamian music? You know, there's a lot of controversy about that. What are your thoughts on that?
This is the discussion that Joanne and I have occasionally, and we have come to no agreement on this at all, I must tell you, seriously. I think that Bahamian music should at least have either Bahamian rhythms or Bahamian themes, or that being Bahamian lyrics. So we have to know that when we hear it on the radio, this is from this country, it is nationalistic. Take Timothy Gibson again, Nassau Calling, then Nassau Moon. We know that, that's Bahamian.
Yeah.
Now that song, Nassau Moon, is written in the style that Nat King Cole would sing one of his songs, When I Fall in Love but it still talks about the Bahamas.
Right.
So I consider that to be Bahamian music, although it's written in a pop style. The Beautiful Bahamaland, that has, that's very colonial march type piece, but it does have Bahamian words and themes in it.
Yes,
so
yes.
I guess if we were to define it, we can have various styles of rhythms, but there must be some connection to lyrically to it to make it national. So that we can, when we hear it on the radio, we don't say, well, that's a nice American piece that Nat King Cole could sing. But that is the Bahamian words that has context and meaning to our people.
Lee, we're enjoying this conversation, talking about you and all of your accomplishments, about your iconic grandfather, Mr. Timothy Gibson, who also happened to be my headmaster when I was a little girl.
Great.
And your collaboration with your beautiful wife, Joanne.
Thank you so much. I'm totally enjoying this.
It's really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Bahamas Then and Now. This episode is brought to you by the Private Trust Corporation Limited, Dungalik Studios, and Vodio.
This is the Bahamas. 700 islands, reefs, and keys, sporting a distinct history and heritage all its own. This is New Providence, most populated, industrialized island at the center of the archipelago. Home of Nassau, the capital city, seat of parliament, location of political and social revolution, site from which our nation declared its independence. And this is Over the Hill, a community, a series of neighborhoods in what was then considered Southwest New Providence. Settled by slaves, having served as the midwife of national deliverance. Over the Hill, a breeding ground of nation builders, constructing trait by trait, precept upon precept, character-toting, culture-shaping leaders. Over the Hill, where independence was born, where the naval string of Bahamianization is buried, where Junkanoo got polished. Over the Hill, where sense and sensitivity were kneaded into the dough of children's souls, where people reverently genuflected to the image of God in every man, over the hill. East Street, Market Street, Blue Hill Road, Baintown, Grantstown, Anderson Street, Augusta Street, DeFort Hill, McPherson Street, over the hill. McCullough Corner, Hay Street, Glinton Square, where? Mason's Addition, Jail Alley, Lewis Street, over the hill. The Coakleys, the Smiths, the Johnsons, the Blydens, the DeStoops, the Grants, and the Coopers, the McPhersons and the Pindlings, the Allens and the Winders, over the hill. The Hannahs, the Bostricks, the Burnsides, the Bethels, the Walkers, the Enuses, and the Thompsons, the McCartneys and the Gibsons, over the hill. What if we went back and dug into the soil of our glorious past? And what if we studied the roots and found the patterns of Bahamian unity and success and progress, and superimposed those on the social ills of Lil Nassau, the social ills of the Bahamas in general? What would happen? What would happen if we really understood where we came from? Our heritage is not ghetto. Our language is not profanity. Our resolution is not violence. We are Bahamians, kings and queens, gentlemen and ladies, athletes and warriors in every sphere, geniuses and priests, artists and leaders, and much of it started over the hill.
You're watching the Bahamas Then and Now.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking to our guest, Lee Callender, musician, vocal coach, and he wears many other hats.
Yes.
Lee, tell us more about your grandfather, Timothy Gibson, the man.
Yes, he was the man, the dapper man. He was so well dressed and such an elegant gentleman. He spoke beautifully. His diction was impeccable. His consonants were always in place. And one of the things I learned from him was his charm. I think I got a little bit, maybe 2% of it, because this guy is just a tough act to follow. But when I was a little kid, he used to take me almost everywhere he went, because for two reasons. I think he enjoyed my company, and the second reason was for protection. This mouth of mine used to get me in trouble with my older male cousins, and they had some evil intent toward me because of it. So I used to go walking with him, and it was so fascinating going from one end of Bay Street to the other. I mean, it took us forever to do so, because he met so many people who wanted to talk to him, to hug him, to kiss him. And what I learned observing him was that everywhere he went, he made somebody laugh. He said something charming, something kind about them, some observation about their persona that made them feel better about their day. And I picked it up from him. I said, that is just a cool thing to do, to make people smile and to make people laugh. We had a time when we went to the harbor one time to a ship. And we did this on several occasions, and he went to this boat and said he wanted to see the captain because he wanted to go on board the ship to see it. Now, that times have changed. It's ridiculous. But because of his demeanor, because of his attitude, people would let him do this, you see? And so he's a very trusting, elegant gentleman. Another story about him, when I came back from Barbados, and he said to me, okay, son, you have to work now. You have to, your mother needs you to pay bills and the kind of stuff. I said, this guy is having a problem, truly. I mean, I was just not into this whole idea of working yet. I mean, I was afraid, actually. When you're a teenager and you go into this future of the workplace and making money and all that kind of stuff, it's a whole new experience. So anyway, he says, what we're going to do, we're going to have training lessons. I said, okay. So he took me down to the other house where the piano was. There were two houses in the yard. And he had us blackboard set up. And he was giving me teacher training, right? Which I had the horrors with, and I was not pleased because he's old school and I'm the modern generation. I was 19 years old at the time and quite feisty, And so I put up with it because he was my grandfather. But anyway, at the end of the first session, I said, Granddaddy, here's the deal. These kids today are not going to respond to this stuff, what you got to do is you go in there and you take over like a hitman. You see, you got to have a hostile takeover and be in charge, you see. And so he had the horse, and then so our lessons were finished because I couldn't take it. It was just very old school for me, and I was bored stiff with it. And so when I finally did go to school to AF Adling, one of the first things I did, I wrote my name on the board, Mr. Lee Callender, and I said, and then I erased the Lee, and I said, this is what you call me. Because I was 19 and they were 18, but I knew that I had to have a hostile takeover right away.
Right.
You see? Now what happened as we became friends with some of the students, because they were my peers, outside of the school gates, it was Lee. Inside the school, it was Mr. Callender. And we had that agreement. You see, because respect is very, very important.
Very much
and one
so.
of the things about respect is that families need to train their kids to respect themselves first, to respect others, to respect other people's property, and to make plans. You know, one of the things that I think our nation lacks is education, not just school education. We need to beef that up as well. But we need to have education where we have education in what it means to be a civil society.
Yes.
For example, we have tons of churches in this country. Besides teaching Bible only, this is the perfect place to teach life skills.
Yes.
How do you make it on planet Earth? This is a raging planet, you know. I mean,
It certainly
really,
is.
we are protected from it to some degree in the Bahamas because we live in a little bubble of isolation in our mini paradise, you see. But if we educate people how to be civil, how to have a plan, how to start a business, because you know one of the things that the Chinese say about people, black people go to school, they come out of school and they're taught to get a job. Chinese people go to school, come out of school, and are taught how to start a business. And the rest is history. We see what the Chinese are doing in the world. So there's a great lesson to be learned from that we can teach people what type of future is it that you want and how to get there. I mean, if you teach a child that from early, I have quite a few wealthy clients, and the things that they talk about, they teach their kids about business. I mean, the things that their kids know at a young age is quite amazing. But poor people talk about poverty. You see, we need to change the dialogue where we start to talk about how do we accumulate wealth? How do we become better at what we do? How do we take our talents and make money from them? I have been self-employed for quite a number of years. And one of the reasons I'm self-employed is because I made a decision to be self-employed. I had this vision, not a spiritual vision, but just this thought that I saw myself in the future in the hotel industry, but then I saw myself not in it because as times change, the music industry has become a little bit defunct in a sense with the hotels.
Yes.
And so I saw myself with a future by myself. And it's a good thing that I did because my days at the hotel became less and less and less, and then they became zilch. But I very easily made the transition. Why is this? Because I read books on leadership, I read books about management, I read books about business, and I am an artist. But now I consider myself a businessman first, and then an artist. So when people have a conversation with me and they don't talk about budget, I don't take them seriously. You see, if you want my services, you need to say, cough up the dollars. I work very hard at this. We need to be paid. You see, the only charity case that I would have is those in my family. You see, and no one else. You see, so we need to teach people about how to create a vision.
Yes.
And I think from childhood and those kinds of conversations.
Talking about children in your childhood and going to school, how have things changed as far as children are concerned compared to when you were in school or when you were a youth and today?
That is a fantastic question. You know, I teach about 40 people every week, quite an army of students. And I have a good amount of teenagers, male and female. And they all go to relatively good schools. So I get the cream of the crop of Nassau. What I've learned from these kids though, that they are so mentally advanced. And these are the ones who are planning now, and their parents are working with them very consistently. This is the type of future that we are planning together for you. Because these parents are actually allowing their kids to determine their future as opposed to become a doctor or a lawyer or the traditional things, you know. I mean, had I been a doctor, I think I would have been either dead from stress or heart attack, or I would have killed somebody with the wrong injection or something by now. Because I would have been so frustrated and distracted because it is not my passion, it's not my calling, it's not the thing. But having said that, when it comes to even working, I heard a quote the other day, love the job that you're doing presently. Because if you don't have anything better, be grateful for the one that you have. So even in the moment when I get frustrated, say, you know what, I'm grateful for this moment and I'm grateful for this job. Because teaching is not always 100% easy, but I'm very fortunate I get the cream of the crop.
Do your students always give 100%?
That's a fascinating question again. You would just have these wonderful questions, Rosie. I mean, like, how smart are you? You know? And so the thing is with that, no. There's this thing called passivity in the country. I think it's in the water. I'm not sure which water it is. I won't call any brand names lest I get attacked, right? But we must be drinking something that causes us to be non-aggressive when it comes to pushing ahead and with our vision and with our plan. This passivity thing, I think it comes from a history of slavery and not having any revolutions in the country, so that we are not used to fighting for things. I'll give an example. A person comes for a class. I say, sing this note. They sing a note, sounds pretty. I say, sing it again, give me a little bit more. We do that a couple of times. And then before I know it, within 5 minutes, we have this amazing, humongous song coming out of this body. My question is, why could you not have done that first? That is my question all the time. Why not give me your best first? What is inside of you that's causing you not to do that?
Who is a current musician that has influenced you or that you're close to?
I'm close to a number of musicians. I'm not sure I would use the word influence, but I would say I use the word admire and grateful for their place in my life. Clear Fidelity, for example, I've recorded his music, the variations on a theme by E. Clement Bethel, and 3 preludes that he wrote. I think I was the first person to record them. Paul Shaw, rather, who lives here now, has also recorded the variations. He lives here in the Bahamas. And so Cleophas has influenced me with the idea of playing beautiful music that we can call Bahamian classical music, carry classics.
Yes.
Adrian Archer, he is just an amazing musician. I've done so much work with him and the High Grove Singers, and I played for them a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, Adrian, can I not just play? Can I just attend the concert and not play at all? Because what you're doing is so beautiful. I mean, and this was a job, that I was hired to do, but it's like so magnificent. And then the bel canto singers with Elridge McPhee, and then the National Youth Choir. I've worked with all these choirs and played for them and had influence in their lives and that kind of stuff. And so that's been wonderful for me. And of course, Paul Hanna years ago, when I was in 1979, I think I met him. I heard him playing some jazz chords. Now, I was a classically trained, and I'm a classically trained musician and pop musician, so jazz was foreign to me. When I heard him do this cool thing with his left hand, I said, I want some of that. And I went home and I started practicing, and that influenced my piano playing in a very significant way. And then my cousin Trevor, who is brother to deceased now, Neil Simonet, Trevor said to me, Lee, do you not know that your right hand and your left hand are not playing together? I said to myself, how could this guy who does not play as well as I do have the nerve to comment on this? I said, I was not pleased at all. I said, I was not aware of that, Trevor. But you know what I did? The desire to be better, I said, you know what? So I started to put my left hand and my right hand together. That was like 30-something years ago. I am conscious of that every day of my life. So those are life-changing moves.
What is the single most important thing that you think we need to do to get people more involved in the cultural life of the country?
Boy, you're dealing with national appreciation, appreciation of your roots, appreciation of yourself, appreciation of all that makes you you, appreciation of the lifeblood of what it means to be Bahamian. I think we need to have a marketing program, once again, educational from government, because the government is a national entity that is supposed to be spearheading these kinds of things. We need that. We also need churches to get off their religious, self-righteous thing about Bahamian music, and let's have some Bahamian music in churches. You see? And people need to start writing Bahamian words that have spiritual context, because we are not European, we are not American. So many times religion has made Bahamian music a crime and a curse and irreligious and satanic to have in the churches. This is the wonderful Dr. Miles Monroe. He was so cool at this kind of stuff, of integrating a variety of music at BFM. I spent 15 years there, interesting years, and as band director and just a pianist, And so we played a whole wide variety of things, but we need more religious leaders to say, you know what, let's embrace our culture. We need families to encourage their children to, find the best of Bahamian music and listen to that, because we have some very sloppy work that's not conducive to continue listening.
That is true.
You see? And so we need to beef up our standards of how we present what we present, and present lyrics that are also quite decent, so that the next generation of parents and kids can listen to this music without feeling that it's too vulgar for them as well. You see? So we need some work with that, some decency in the lyrics and some excellence in the production of those instrumentals.
This has all been a very wonderful conversation, Lee.
Well, thank you so much. I've had a blast being here today.
It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
We encourage you to continue watching the series, The Bahamas Then and Now, and we urge you to invite others to tune in. Thank you for being with us, Lee Callender.
Thank you so very much for having me.